It is the evening of August 5, 1945, in Hiroshima. The cicadas are loud in the heat. Children chase each other along the riverbanks. Streetcars rattle past shops that are still open. And not one of the 350,000 people living here knows that this is the last ordinary night they will ever have. That's the strange thing about Hiroshima in the summer of 1945. By this point in the war, most of Japan's big cities had already burned. American bombers had firebombed 64 of them. Tokyo had been reduced to ash in a single night. But Hiroshima, somehow, had been spared. The bombs kept falling everywhere else, and they kept skipping this one city by the sea. People noticed, and they didn't trust it. Some whispered that the Americans were saving Hiroshima for something special. Others convinced themselves their city just wasn't worth the trouble. Many had relatives in America, so maybe that was the reason. The truth was simpler and far darker. Hiroshima had been left untouched on purpose, so that when the new weapon came, the world could see exactly what one bomb could do to a city that was still whole. But on the evening of August 5th, nobody could imagine that. Life simply went on, and life in Hiroshima was hard. Food was scarce. The 1945 rice harvest was the worst in over 30 years. Families stretched thin rations and waited in long lines. Fathers and sons were gone, fighting or already dead. The city had become a place of mothers, grandparents, and children doing the work the war demanded. Daughters took jobs in factories. Old men patrolled the streets at night. Everyone carried an exhaustion that had settled in over years of war, hunger, and loss. Hiroshima mattered to that war more than its people may have realized. It was a military city. Tens of thousands of soldiers were stationed here. The port shipped troops and supplies. The headquarters defending all of southern Japan sat right in the middle of town. That is exactly why it was chosen. On that final evening, thousands of teenagers were getting ready for the next morning's work. These were school children, some as young as 12, pulled out of their classrooms and sent into the city center. Their job was to tear down houses by hand. The idea was to create firebreaks, wide, empty lanes that would stop flames from spreading if the city was ever bombed. So the children worked in the open, in the heart of the city, clearing wood and carrying debris. They were trying to protect Hiroshima from fire. They had no idea what was actually coming. That night, the air raid sirens went off, like they often did. People shuffled into shelters, tired and annoyed. Then the all-clear sounded, and they went back to bed. False alarms had become part of life. A plane would appear, everyone would brace, and then nothing would happen. They had learned to stop being afraid. Far away, on a tiny island called Tinian, the night looked very different. A B-29 bomber sat ready on the runway. Its crew had checked and rechecked everything. In its belly was a single bomb, a uranium weapon they called Little Boy. Nobody on that island knew for certain it would even work. It had never been used in war. A test bomb had been detonated weeks earlier in the New Mexico desert, but no one had ever dropped one on a living city. The crew was briefed, given a quiet meal, and told to rest. The mission was set for the early hours of August 6th. So while the people of Hiroshima slept under the all-clear, the thing that would end their world was already fueled and waiting. Morning came clear and bright. August 6th opened with a beautiful blue sky, the kind of summer day that should have been gentle. That clear weather was the final piece. The crew needed to see the city below them, and Hiroshima gave them a perfect view. Around 7 in the morning, Japanese radar picked up American planes approaching. The sirens wailed again. People sighed and took cover one more time. But only a few aircraft showed up, just a small group, probably weather planes. So the all-clear sounded a second time. People stepped back into the sunlight. Shops reopened. Workers headed to their jobs. The mobilized students gathered in the open to keep tearing down houses. The city exhaled and went back to its morning. Trolleys filled with commuters. Mothers prepared breakfast. Doctors opened their clinics. A normal Monday, finally arriving after a tense night. High above, one B-29 was lining up its approach. The crew searched for their target, a distinctive bridge shaped like a T near the center of the city. The weather was clear. The aim was good. At 8:15 in the morning, the bomb fell. It took about 43 seconds to drop. It exploded roughly 1,900 feet above the ground, almost directly over the people who had just decided there was nothing to fear. In that instant, tens of thousands of lives ended. The students clearing firebreaks, the commuters on the trolleys, the mothers and the doctors and the shopkeepers. The very fire lanes those children were building could never have stopped what arrived. In less than a second, the temperature near the center rose hotter than the surface of the sun. Buildings that had stood for generations simply vanished, and the firebreaks meant to save the city became part of the ruin. By the end of 1945, the death toll in Hiroshima would reach somewhere between 90,000 and 166,000 people. Most of them were civilians. Most of them had been going about an ordinary day. What stays with you is the gap between how small that final night felt and how enormous the morning became. On August 5th, the biggest worries were rations, sirens, and the heat. People were frustrated by false alarms. They were tired of taking cover for nothing. They had decided their city was somehow safe. And that ordinary calm is the part history almost forgets. We remember the explosion. We remember the cloud. But we rarely sit with the night before, when 350,000 people went to sleep believing tomorrow would be like every other day. That is the real weight of Hiroshima. Not just the disaster, but the last hours before it. The ordinary moments that nobody knew to treasure, because nobody knew they were the last. The breakfast that would never be finished. The walk to work that would never end. The children sent out to protect a city that could not be protected. So picture that evening one more time. The cicadas in the heat, the streetcars, the sirens that meant nothing. And ask yourself, if you had been there, hearing the all clear, feeling the calm return, would you have believed that your city was safe? Most of them did. And that is what makes the last day before Hiroshima so hard to forget.